So we had the old floor generator and we wanted to increase the performance, and we thought, hey, this is going to be really easy.
Many months later.
Okay, and I'm not going to take credit for this. This was an insane masterpiece. I can't even fathom how this is put together. This was made by Kate White. I'll put a link in the description. She helped with the roof generator as well. Well, she made the roof generator basically. And this is insane. I can't even begin to understand where this even starts. But it is finished, and this is like many, many months of work. It started off with us just saying, hey, we want to increase the performance of the floor generator to, oh, let's add this feature. And that just went on. And we just thought, hey, we need to release this, otherwise this is just never going to be released, and we're just going to keep making features that nobody can have. So at this point it's at a very, very good stage in which you can make a whole ton of different floor systems and wall systems and tile systems that should be good for most cases. So what I'm going to do in this video is to talk through the features and hopefully get you excited so you want to try this out yourself. So the first step was obviously performance. So this is the old one. You can see the limited number of settings, but the performance is questionable. It works, and I've seen some incredible renders with it, but it needed improving. So this is the new version. It's basically night and day. You can do anything with this. And also with the old system, if you wanted to change the floor type, you had to go to geometry nodes and change to another floor type here. But this one, we can simply just change them here. And the same settings for changing the length and heights of all these elements is very, very easy to do here. So creating that system has made that a night and day difference. Okay, so let's say you have this floor system, or in this case it's a wall system, and you have made your building and you think that looks really nice, but it needs to be clapboard siding. That is now possible too. So going down to standard panels only, we can enable clapboard siding. We can now see that we have right out the box, just immediately clapboard siding. If you change the height here, it will automatically change the heights and widths of these elements to fit. You can also increase the rotation yourself manually if you wanted more. Now, also, if you enable, for example, randomized rotation, we can immediately add something that looks far more older. And you can then add, for example, in the shade editor, you can add some moss with ambient occlusion. You can make this look old within a few clicks. So this is amazing. This clapboard siding has been a huge request feature, and I'm so happy that this is now out. Now, if you're working on a bathroom, in a lot of cases, if you have a tile which looks like this, the edge of the tile is going to be quite sharp. And in real life, generally you'll have something called a trim, in which it will go around the edge to protect the person from cutting themselves in the shower, which will be a bit of a mess. So they have something called a trim. So if I enable trim, we can see a trim has been added to all the edges. Now, we don't need it on all the edges, especially the edges where they go inside of the corner. You don't need it there, but we do need it around the outside edge. So we do have something called an attribute in which we can selectively choose where we want this trim to appear. So if I go to here, we can say trim on all pieces, but instead we want it on a select few. So I'm going to click this button here. It should say trim, but you can literally just write the words trim there like this. You go to the data properties, and then we go down to attributes, and there is not a trim here, so we can make one. This is going to just be called trim. Domain is going to be edge, and then we're going to make this a boolean and click add. So now all I need to do is go into edit mode, select an edge. Let's actually click on this one first and press F3, set attribute, and enable trim for that piece. So now we can select all these corners, edges, and do the same thing. So set attribute, trim. And there we go. So now we have a trim on all the edges. This does have its own material. Let's just make one here, just a very quick metal, glossy a bit. And then go to the modifier and go down and select that material here. So now this is going to get that material, which is lovely. If you do a lot of bathrooms, I think you'll get an understanding of how useful this will be. And not only that, it will also, if I just turn this off, it will add a trim around all the edges. So in a lot of cases, if you have a bathroom where the tiles do just stop, you will often also have a trim along the outside edge as well. This can be used in the wood floors and everything. So if you need some sort of trim, that could be going on there. We did try adding some custom trims, but that was proving quite difficult, and that will have to be released in the next version. But we do have a couple of different trim types here. So like a square one, and a slightly different one, slightly different square one, and this one here, which I think is probably most common, but that should be enough to get you going anyway. Okay, and the next feature, let's turn off trim. This was also highly requested because in the old system, trying to make the tiles align was quite a nightmare. And it was so slow anyway, you might accidentally keep going past the edges trying to adjust it because there will be some lag. But now, because it's so fast, it's going to be far easier. And we've added quite a clever system. Okay, so in this new system, the way in which we do it is very simple. I'm just going to go into the edit mode. I'm going to select any vertex. So all the vertices right now are joined, which they should be. But if I just press Shift D to make a new one, that is now being used to align. So it makes it very, very easy to adjust where the tiles are going to go. So I can just press GZ, bring that down to this corner, and GY, and this is how tiles should be set up in your system. They probably won't even be that thick, actually. They'll probably be quite thin. And you can then adjust exactly where the tiles are going to go. If you are making tiles and making a bathroom, please do remember that they should be like a full tile width apart, and they should ideally align like this where possible. If you have a half tile like this will generally be incorrect, and if it can align, then it should. So anyway, that is such a powerful piece that I am using this myself in my own projects. I love this, such a simple way of adjusting all the tiles in such an easy way on the X, Y, and Z axis. So we do have obviously a bunch of randomization features, a bunch of offsetting or anything you can imagine in this point. If we are missing something, please let me know and we'll try to put that into the next version. But this geometry node system doesn't just end there. It also goes into the shader editor as well, because there's different types of floor systems or wood systems depending on the texture that you have. So if you're making a wood floor system, for example, you are probably going to get something like this from the manufacturer, in which every single plank is given to you and they're not going to be seamless, but you want to randomize them over the whole surface. Now, our old system did have this, and it basically works like this, in which you have a bunch of different textures. So all the base color, all the roughness, and all the normals. If I unplug one, we will then see that one being randomized. So all of these are going to be randomized over the whole surface, but that is not a seamless texture. So all of the images are being randomized over their whole space, but we do have some additional settings here for different use cases. So let me just explain this setup here. This one at the top right now in this current setup is being used for this top surface, and then this one here is being used for the edges where it's being cut. So let me show you a bit more of a better example. Let me just quickly do this, grout like this, and let me just plug this one back in really quick. Okay. So let me explain. So what we have here, if I go into here and just highlight this one, we can see that this is basically a mask for the edge grain. And then this one is a mask for the end grain, grain referring to wood grain. And then we also have this one, which is cut, which is referring to where the Boolean is happening around the edges. So what we can do is add these all together by doing this, plugging that one in, and we can see that we've created a mask with that. Let's duplicate that and add that one on as well. And now we have a perfect mask for all of them. So what this is basically doing in this setup is that we're saying we want the top piece to have this UV unwrap, and then the cut pieces to have a different unwrap. But right now, so as you can see here, what we have is a texture on the surface, and this is being unwrapped round the side. So the whole UV is going around the tile, which in most cases is exactly what you want to happen. It's going to be the same texture over the sides, but if you do want to unwrap it in different ways, you can then use this to split them out and say that you want edges to be in a different way. Now, this is especially useful. We have had some customers in the past, and they wanted to make something like a sideboard using the floor generator, which is amazing. However, the edges were not unwrapped, but now they are, and the texture will just flow over the sides. So it will be consistent, which is really nice. So if you wanted to apply this, you can, and then you can tweak these if you want to and adjust them further. Whereas previously you'd then have to unwrap it before you can do anything. Okay, so that is coming out of UV fit. So it's a fitted texture within the UV space, but then you might have something like a seamless texture. Now, let's say you have a seamless texture and you want this to go over the whole surface. That's also very easy. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to plug that into this part here. And now that's going to be randomizing that seamless texture over all of the tiles. So we can see that this is now randomized. We can randomize the location. If that's turned off, we'll see that it's going to be the same on every single one. If we randomize the location, it's going to be shifting all the UVs on all of them. And we can also flip them to add some more randomization to that. Now, flipping doesn't always work quite nicely, because sometimes if a tile is side by side and the other one's flipped, then you'll see like a mirror, but this works in quite a lot of cases. You could also change the direction as well if you wanted to, but this works amazingly well. We can also change the scale of these if we wanted to. And as it's seamless, we can go right out, but then we start getting the same problem with the seamless texture. But something like this, there's no longer any tiling, and this looks amazing. Obviously there's some repetition, but this to me looks like a randomized object. So in that case where you just have one set of textures, UV seamless is amazing. Okay, now for one of my favorite features about this shaders that come with this is being able to use a grid texture like this randomly over all of the tiles. So if you get a texture like this and you apply it to a surface, eventually you're going to see that the tiles are repeated, the tiling tiles, that they're going to be repeated and you're going to see the repetition at some point. However, with this setup, if I set this to be UV grid, we can then say that we have a texture that we do want to be split up into a certain amount of parts, and then that is what's going to be randomized over the whole surface. So this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 by 8. So I've said the UV count, U count, and the V count is 8, and it's basically making something I believe called a sprite sheet, in which is splitting that texture up into 8 pieces, and then all of these pieces are going to be randomized over the whole surface. So if you have a large tile system, so for example on the inside of a swimming pool where you have a very large surface of very little tiles, you want them to be randomized and without seeing any repetition. This is a perfect use case for that. So you can say, I want this to be split like this, and you can make, let me just turn off the bevel, and then you can make the bottom side of the swimming pool Okay, and this is a perfect use case, for example, the inside of a swimming pool, and we can see all the tiles are being randomized over the whole surface. So just from this 8x8, we're getting almost perfect randomization. You might see some elements that look like they're repeating, but then suddenly it stops. That's based on how the tiles are randomized, but if it was just this one texture, it would be considerably worse. So this for me is one of my favorite tools of this, and part of the iMesh release for this geometry system, we released tons of tiles and terrazzos and materials that can all be used on this system especially. So if you want something like a metro tile, we can do that as well. So we have something called an inset scale. So I can do that, and then I can then increase the height. So that will then create like a beveled edge to the tile, which is useful in so many cases. We do have some metro tiles released on iMesh as well, which use this exact system. So this gives you so much more flexibility when you're creating your tiles that you can actually create something far more interesting if you need to, especially something like a metro tile, which has a beveled edge. So that's amazing. Okay, so just a very quick recap. We have a seamless texture for seamless textures where you could just have a base color roughness and normal, and then you can randomize that single texture over any tile. You can use UV fit, which is especially useful when you have a whole ton of non-seamless textures which you want to be randomized over the whole surface. And then we have UV grid if we have something like a UV system, if we have a tile system like this, in which we want to randomize every single one over the whole surface. Okay, and that's basically the floor system. And I'm so happy with it at this point. I think that it can do most floors or tiles and even wood cladding at this point, that it's becoming such a universal tool for such a various different scenarios that I'm so happy with how it's going. If you do have a feature that you'd like to see, please do let us know and we'll add it to the list. Now, if you wanted to get this floor generator, it's just $17 for the whole subscription for the whole of iMesh, and you'll not only get the floor systems, you'll get almost 3,000 individual assets which you can just download and use in your own projects. You'll also get a whole ton of materials and geometry nodes and effects. And not only that, we also have a whole ton of scenes. So if you want to learn how to do some lighting in specific scenes, this one was great fun to do. You might have seen my other YouTube video about it, but you can get your hands on these and see how they're actually put together yourself so you can use them in your own projects. So it's quite an endless list of things you can get for just $17 per month. If you're subscribed and we make an update, you'll then get that update as well. So I'm sure our current subscribers are going to be very happy with this updated version of the floor generator. I hope you enjoyed, and I can't wait to see creations using this new floor generator. If you have any suggestions, please do let me know. But thank you very much for watching, and do like and subscribe.